I'm interested to see what they do. You know, would they put Insigne on the bench and then bring him on and see what the reception is from the fans?
Oh God!
Use that as leverage. Listen, unless you do what you want to do,
him, the whole stadium, then it's even more pressure on him now. Going, get out.
Because the official line from Robin Fraser is, you know, I only pick the players who I think can help us. That's kind of the company line. So this $50 million player cannot help us at all. You got to think he can do something. Don't you?
I think the longer TFCs stay sort of unsuccessful, and it might last the entirety of the season, but if they stay kind of stuck in neutral here, they're unable to kind of generate anything in the way of results, then that might increase the chances of Insigne coming back. But if they're able to do something, then Fraser can sort of stand pat and then keep him outside of his plans. Mm-hmm. And then I think that puts pressure on Insigne, right? The spotlight's firmly on him. Be like, you're just a distraction here. You're on the outside looking in. Just make a decision and move on.
Yeah. I can imagine as well, Robin Fraser, just how frustrated he is because if you can get Insigne out, then it allows him to get a couple of players that are going to improve the roster and buy into what he's trying to do at the club. So I know if I was in his situation, I'd be just saying, get out so I can get in another 2-3 players here that's going to make a difference for this squad.
What's he got, a year and a half left on his contract?
Yeah, which is weird, isn't it? That you end the contract in the middle of a season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so he's the player, so he can then head off to Europe in their off season, right? It's all about the player. Poor guy, you know, having to come all this way, all that money.
Yeah.
One more thing for you, and we're going to give you a contract that will really, really inconvenience us as a club. But it's
allegedly he's not allowed to change. They've got him in his Hummer getting ready for practice.
It's Rolls Royce, I think.
It's a Rolls Royce. Well, it's a big Rolls Royce, and Jimmy and I saw him, so he could fit in the back pretty easily.
Make it go away.
Was up in a Rolls Royce. Fuck off.
Is this the
booster seat?
Painful, boring story in sports right now in North American sports, soccer certainly. Like within Toronto, the Mitch Marner situation in hockey is getting pretty freaking boring. Although it wasn't that boring over the weekend. But this one for TFC fans is like, oh yeah, just figure it out, please.
Well, how about me and Wonger went to the Toronto Raptor game on Saturday night?
We did.
You got a situation where a team is tanking. They're completely trying to tank.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious. And even though we're looking at the Toronto Raptors schedule and we're like, they got an outside chance to the playoffs because they've got a really soft schedule.
They've got the easiest schedule for the rest of the season, and they're just playing all their, and I'm not saying they're scrubs, but they're not trying to win. They're playing their second stringers. And so the best thing about the night going out with Kreger was eating curried chicken and then walking to the ACC. Or sorry, it's called Scotiabank now. But yes, that was the best part of the entire night. Maybe the coffee. Tim Hortons coffee wasn't bad. We left at halftime. It was
really?
so
You
bad.
did that? You scumbags. You're not fans. You
We
stick it out,
be.
Wonger. You stick it out
Oh, jeez.
as long as you can. Halftime?
It's tough. Yeah.
How many people out there will be dying for those tickets? Those seats.
There are a lot of people we saw
wandering around leaving.
Yeah. We also saw a ruckus, some guy getting thrown out who was
nice.
Yeah.
Do you know the reason? Was he him and his girlfriend were kicked out, or he was in a ruckus with his girlfriend?
No, him and his girlfriend were thrown out, and the security guard said, "You will be banned from MLSC from going forward." And I was like, "Oh, it's a tough line."
Which Toronto fan base is most maligned right now? You got your Raptors, right? You got a recent championship though.
Yeah.
You got your TFC, whose championship is getting further and further away, but it's been just nothing but years of just pathetic football.
Right.
You got your Jays, who I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the plan there is, apart from bidding for players they'll never ever get, and then missing out on everyone else. You got the Leafs, who, well, You got your Leafs.
Good regular
We'll see what happens
season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they give you hope? I think they give you guys hope.
No.
No?
Oh no.
You're resigned to them losing.
This current, listen, not to get into a hockey podcast, but this current leadership group on the ice, the star players, will not win. They can't win. They've got to stop it. They've got to break it up. Said that 3 years ago, but they don't. So until they prove me wrong. But all the evidence suggests they're going to fold up in the playoffs once again after a really good regular season.
That's just because that's what happens every year.
It's what happens
every year.
Yeah.
Although if TFC, let's put this in different terms, if TFC always had a great regular season, something to cheer about, getting to Canadian championships, getting to Conca Cups, you would
No, sorry. Can you say that again if you don't mind?
Conca Cups.
We had that for dessert the other day at the restaurant.
I did. It's like a Reese's candy bar is what it was. But if they were always competing for these mid-season trophies, I wouldn't. You'd sit there and say, "Oh, that's a good season," even if they lost in the first round. Yeah, at least they're competing. TFC hasn't even been competing. They're not.
I remember. Sorry, Wong. I remember asking JMO this question towards the end of the year when TFC were about to face the Whitecaps in the Canadian Championships, and I said, "Would it be enough to sort of satiate the fan base to say, okay, we win the Canadian Championship, but we don't make the playoffs?" And JMO said no. And so I think as an organization, it's looking at what is the threshold for patience. Not that what we can get away with, but they're well-informed fans. They're smart fans, I think, of all the franchises we just mentioned that are in the Toronto area. You could say the same thing for CF Montreal fans or Habs fans, Vancouver Whitecaps fans, Canucks fans. I think Canadian fans are well-informed. They understand what the business is, but they don't want to be spoken down to. Like, don't belittle me, don't malign me, don't take me for a ride. So it's sort of straddling that line where being like communicating what your goals are. Like with the Raptors visibly tanking, you guys walking out at halftime, like that's where it goes back to CF Montreal and the performance. I think that the fans would be okay. They would be able to deal with, and I think it would be palatable if the underlying performances were decent and they still weren't getting results, because I think you still see it moving towards sort of a finish line, or at least to where your expectations lie, and that maybe matches what the organization is thinking. But when you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes, or you're just openly tanking, I don't think Canadian fans deal with that very well. So it's meeting, okay, organizationally, fan base, can we meet in the middle? And then you have situations like the Insigne where it's just like, we want it to go away, but we can't do anything. We're sort of stuck in neutral. We're not going forward. We're moving backwards, actually, because of this situation. And I think that is what the fans find not only frustrating, but unacceptable.
You know what? It's a great point. I think that in Canadian soccer, for the top clubs, the meat of the season, the cake, the body of the cake is the playoffs. Get in there. The Canadian Championship is the cherry sitting right on top, or maybe the cream on top of the cake. But you have to have the meat of the cake first, and then great, win a Voyageurs Cup, fantastic. But there's 11 professional teams, fully professional teams in the country. That's it, and there's 3 that massively outspend the other 8. So really, you're competing. Traditionally speaking, there's been some surprises, some shocks. It's been great, and CPL is getting better and better. But you're competing with 2 other teams to win the Canadian Championship, and it's lovely, it's great, and it's growing, and I like that tournament. But let's be honest, the playoffs. Let's not like you said, Dubs. Let's not patronize the fans here. They know what's important, and you have to get to the show, because we know what it meant to TFC when they won the thing. It was amazing, the energy in this city, and soccer abroad. It was fantastic. When Vancouver won the cup this past season, it was lovely. Did Vancouver shut down? Did most Vancouverites know about it?
You're being rhetorical right now, right?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I also wanted to tell Craig the best part of my night. I was actually wrong it wasn't the jerk chicken. It was that we had a little chocolate on the way there. And the best thing was when it kicked in at home at 10:30 at night. I'm like, wow, the YouTube videos are really, really entertaining.
You're not
that's
wrong.
where we lived at halftime.
I'm not wrong.
But going back to what you're saying, Sharms, like organizationally, it wasn't enough for the Whitecaps, right? 3 in a
No.
row,
They
Voyageurs
fired,
Cup.
they
And
fired
they
the
fired
manager.
Fanny, right?
Yeah.
So it's not enough. And to hear Gabriel Gervais and hear the fans moan about it, like goals for, I think it was preseason last year, we want to win a trophy. And he's talking about the Voyageurs Cup. And the fans are like, really? This is where we're setting the bar?
Well,
And it would have
Jimmy-
been great, like that, if in a season that was middling, they sort of surged at the end of the year last year, were able to make it into the play-in and lost in penalties. But again, that's not enough. And that year, that would have been the cherry on top of the sundae. But the cake wasn't there. It was, canned whipped cream and then a maraschino cherry from the grocery store.
Well,
Nothing
what a
fucking
cherry,
fancy.
yeah.
No, that's
Yeah.
why I think looking back at Vancouver and the season that they had last year, and to say that they were going to finish 14th or whatever it was in the West, it doesn't make sense to me, because you're talking about a team that won a Canadian championship, who in the playoffs beat Portland 5-0, took LAFC to game 3, performed very, very well. They've added a few good pieces this year to the team. So for them to say that they were going to finish that low in the Western Conference, I agree with Dubs. It's just lazy, isn't it? They are a good side, Vancouver. I really like them. They're my favorite team at the moment.
Hey, Jimmy, you sat in an MLS locker room before a season, early in TFC's existence. I'm not being facetious here, but what did Mo tell you guys before the season? What was the goal of those early campaigns?
Well, I mean, the goal, regardless what team you are, is to get into the playoffs. To get into the playoffs, and as you know, when you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So that was our target, was to get into the playoffs and try to have a good start to the season. I mean, it was a difficult situation for us right from the get-go, because we just had a bunch of guys thrown together. And we knew it was going to take some time for the squad to kind of adjust to one another and find out who we were as a team. But it's always get into the playoffs at the beginning of the year. I mean, there's no team starts and says, "Oh, you know what? Let's just finish mid-table."
Right.
Jimmy, you won a Canadian championship, though. Did that alleviate you of some some negativity from the fans? Did they lean into it?
Yeah, I think we won 4 in a row. I think it was
Jeez.
9, 10, 11, 12. And that became, a huge target at the beginning of the season, because it was a way to get into the Champions Cup. So for TFC, that was one of their big goals as that competition started getting on, because once we were allowed to get into CONCACAF, then that was a huge goal for everybody. And I mean, look, I'm sure Montreal was the exact same. Vancouver was the exact same, thinking we can get in, into CONCACAF football here if we win this championship. So teams started to be a little bit more competitive and take it more serious. So that was a goal. Yeah.
It's a little bit easier for Canadian teams to get an opportunity at the CONCACAF Cup.
Yeah.